My grandfather told me the hills were haunted. I did not believe him at first. You should sleep over. You know how these hills are during the night, my grandfather urged. Yes, I know, I replied with a laugh. Durkevik is gonna get me and eat my teeth. I got no reply from the grandpa, only a flat stare. We spent a day cutting and preparing firewood for the winter at his house, located in a remote village of South Serbia, with gloomy hills all around. Work took us a bit more time than we expected, allowing early autumn evening to creep upon us. I'll be able to catch a bus. Don't worry, Gramps. If I head out right now, that is. You were probably right, and nowadays there are streetlights to help you feel safer anyway. Yes, from Babaroga. That is going to eat my toes, right? I know you like to make fun of it, kid, but you wouldn't laugh if you saw what I saw. What did you see? No time to tell you anyway. Go ahead, you're gonna miss the bus. I looked over at the sun slowly setting behind the tired hills. I don't visit him that often, let alone sleep over, so a sense of guilt washed over me as I looked over at him sitting on a wooden chair he made, drinking a bit of his favorite brandy. I didn't believe his stories, but I figured he could have used some company. He has lived alone ever since my grandmother died a few years back. Maybe this was his way of getting me to stay, so I sighed and said, "If I stay over, will you tell me this story?" His lips curved into a smile, but his eyes remained dull, as if only a part of him wanted to tell me a story. Sure, let your father know while I pour you some brandy too. You're gonna need it. I quickly called my father, while Grandpa got inside the house, bringing out a bottle and something else, a smaller empty bottle, covered in dust, as if it hasn't seen the light of day in a very long time. He poured me a glass too. We cheered, and we crossed ourselves in Orthodox Christian manner, as it was a custom in this religion. What's that about? I asked, nodding towards the dusty bottle. It's proof of my story. There's a reason I don't go out in these hills during the night. And that I don't want you to go out there either. Tell me, son, what do you know of the history of this place? Of the village? Not so much. Of this whole region, I mean. The hills and the mountains. I don't know. Well, under Ottoman rule, there were a lot of skirmishes here during the war. Our ancestors and the Ottomans fought often, stripping each other of corpses, of weapons, and anything of value of that matter. As resources were scarce, war was ongoing, so there was no time for funerals. Bodies were being left to rot in the middle of the woods, and it is believed that their restless spirits still haunt these woods. Chills ran down my spine. Even though I did not believe in unnatural things, I read about these events in history, and for the most part they were correct. Slavic forces and Ottomans often had several battles here several hundred years ago. When I was young, maybe a bit older than you, I was getting back from the town on foot. I went there to sell a bag of tobacco that I harvested on the market. Your generation is so lucky to not have to do that, he laughed. It is a long walk, and the night caught up to me. I had some luck to have a bit of moonlight here and there. Otherwise it would have been pitch black. Several kilometers away though, I suddenly started hearing music, out of nowhere. From what I could gather, it seemed as if I ran into a wedding. A wedding in the middle of the night, in the hills? Yes, exactly. Just as a cloud gathered covering the moon. I cut the corner, and right there in the field there was 20 to 30 people from what I could gather. As I could only see their silhouettes, I found it weird too. People in the middle of the cold night, out in the nowhere, but for some reason at the moment it made sense to me. One of the men started walking towards me, telling me they are celebrating, and offering me a drink. The last trace of a smile left my grandfather's face, and his voice became dead serious. I was hesitant at first, but he insisted. It was a cloudy night, and I had to walk a bit more to my home, so I thought, why not? I could use a drink, so I took the bottle he was offering. He turned to me, a grave expression on his face. Tell me now, son. What did we do right before we emptied these glasses? He gestured to 2 empty glasses in front of us. I stared at him blankly for a few moments before remembering. We crossed ourselves. Right, and so did I. Back then, see, it is not just a custom. By crossing yourself before you drink, you are calling the Spirit of God to you, to drive away evil. I know it sounds silly, but we have been doing it for centuries now. Before I drank back then, I instinctively crossed myself. As soon as I did it, it was like I had woken up. It was like I had been pulled out of a dream, or a nightmare for that matter. Music stopped, people disappeared, and the scariest part is, I was not even in that field. Where were you? I found myself on the edge of a bridge, as if I was getting ready to jump down, right where the rocks in the river are. I'm sure this was the devil's or some restless spirit's way of tempting me into harming myself, and that crossing myself was a divine intervention. That is why I never walked over these hills during the night again. Do you know how I know I was not dreaming, and all of that was real? Ripa finally asked. How? Everything else disappeared, but when I finally got back to myself on the bridge, this was still in my hand, he said, lifting a dusty old bottle.